my podcast. I am your favorite tarot reader and astrologer, Danyell Carmelita, and I have a guest who is making noises with his chair.
Yes, Mercury Morris, your conspiracy theorist, favorite conspiracy theorist.
He has an alias. Is that what it's called?
No, I don't.
What is it called when you don't have a... Okay, whatever.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, anyway, this podcast, if you're new here, this is only my second episode, and here we connect astrology and tarot with our current events, and we discuss and discover ancient practices, and we align it with our predictions for the world, with the world. Today's episode is about Uranus and Taurus, we've been in Taurus since 2018, and it will go all the way until 2026. And we'll even discuss the next phase, which is Uranus and Gemini. But before I get into that, how was your week?
It was better than I deserved. It was very good.
We had a solar eclipse in Scorpio, so there were some arguments there that I witnessed, maybe have been a part of. We had Mercury in retrograde. In Taurus, definitely witnessed gossip with people possibly being fired. And also I saw a strike with the Writers Guild, yes, which is very Mercury in retrograde in the sign of Taurus.
The directors have a strike coming up too as well.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. I feel like that's more Pisces. So whatever. We'll see how that goes. And then coming up, we also have Venus entering Cancer, which is today. So, yes. So, first of all, let me just explain. We're going to go over Uranus and Taurus. I'm going to explain what it means. And we're going to I'm going to discuss past events to help you further understand the common themes with Uranus and Taurus. And then we'll do our predictions. That's why we have Mercury. What's your name? Mercury
Morris.
It's okay if I just call you Mercury? Or you
okay
want the full?
That.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. So, yes. And then again, we'll talk about Uranus going into Gemini and predictions with that. So first, let me explain Uranus and Taurus. It's from 2018 to 2026. Uranus is known as the Great Awakener. Uranus does not like to get too comfortable because it doesn't like to be complacent, and it's a planet that forces us out of our comfort zones. It's associated with change, revolution, youth movements, freedom, independence, radical change, creativity, originality, and new technology. Now, Uranus takes 84 years to complete a whole cycle through the zodiac, and 7 years with each zodiac sign, all depending on if it goes retrograde. Now, Mercury Morris doesn't know anything about astrology. Do you think you know anything about? I don't think he does.
Just from osmosis, from just living my life for X
and
amount of decades.
Right now, he's probably just hearing the Charlie Brown teacher going wah, wah, wah in his ear. But that is not the case with the listeners. Anyway, so the planet is about sudden change. It shocks and innovates. This rebellious cosmic character is known for disrupting. That's why it's also known for expect the unexpected. Uranus tends to bring out technical advancements, and radical changes in the area of the sign that it is ruled, which we will be getting into the Taurus energy. But right now we're just going to talk about Uranus. Uranus gives us autonomy, the right to govern, self-govern, explaining its high probability, which could be also connectors to dictators. Be aware of that energy. So, Uranus has made individual questions why we settle for abuses of corporate life and labor, and our talents are worth more, and why am I not being compensated for something? Uranus is also the shock of the new. Feminists is represented with Uranus. And I'm sure Mercury has a lot to say about that when we get into that area. But feminist, and it represents freedom and abortions because it's the freedom fighter. Keywords with Uranus is adjustment, borders. And Mercury's into the borders. Agriculture, aliens, astrology, crisis, deaths, disruptions, extremes, innovations, nonconformists, occult, overthrowing, rulers, spaceships, tornadoes, volcanoes, and strong winds. Any mutable sign really deals with chaotic weather anyway. But Uranus, because it's ruled by Aquarius, that's more fixed. But we'll get into something else with that. Uranus is about new inventions which have not been yet dreamed of. So now Taurus. Taurus is the sign of value and worth and worldly wealth and money, beauty, sustainability. Fertility, which is a strong connection with the feminists, which I talked about with Uranus, sexual embodiment, our finances, material possessions, our self-worth and self-esteem, the body and the land, our stewardship over land, and the interconnected freedoms. Taurus is an earth sign. It's also associated with nature and farming, and is represented of the symbol of the bull. And the bull is linked to fertility, growth, and correlating with the beginning of spring and blooming of life. Taurus mantra is I have, and it is a fixed sign and an earth sign, so it makes it very stubborn and doesn't want a mix of all the 12 zodiac signs. The earth element is also a very slow moving earth element, and Mercury Morris is a Virgo in Mars, so I think moving slow, he resonates with that energy. Anyway,
Calculated.
what you think? No, well, Taurus energy is very calculated, though. Actually, some key words for Taurus is possessions, banks. Florida is a key word with Taurus. Cash, currency.
Florida, the state.
Yes.
Weird.
No, it's other states too. Georgia is also associated with Taurus. Poland, Russia, and toothaches is also with Taurus energy. Now we have Uranus and Taurus. So did you understand what Uranus meant? Were you even listening, Mercury?
Say it one more time what Uranus meant.
No, that was too much. It's basically a disruptor, and it's all about revolution and freedom.
And we're in a disruptor environment.
Well, we're in Uranus. We always have you.
We are in a disruptor environment, and you can tell me if you're an astrologer.
Okay, wait. No, first of all, Uranus is always here. Like the sun is always here and the moon is always here, okay. But it's in a different sign. Okay. Right? So now it's in a sign of Taurus, which I just said, which is the key words for Taurus is what I said. I'm not even going to repeat it. I don't know if Mercury is listening. So now we have Uranus and Taurus. So when you have the energy of disruptor and revolution and freedom, and think of Aquarius, right? And Ende is an Aquarius. Freedom. I don't want to listen to the rules. I want to be independent. That is what you have with the planet Uranus. That's the ruler of Aquarius. And now it's in the sign of Taurus. And Taurus is all about our wealth and our currency, and it's about Florida too, which is very interesting. So Uranus entered Taurus May 15th, 2018 at 8:18 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We are already currently in this energy, but I really wanted us to learn about what is going on and what's coming up next, and it will remain there through April 27, 2026 at 5:51 p.m. So when we have this energy, Uranus and Taurus, the things that we have currently, tell me if you agree, Uranus and Taurus there's two. First of all, let me explain. The two archetypes do not agree, right? They're radically different because Uranus is all about movement and shaking things up, and Taurus is all about staying. So when you have it together, it's innovating through resources, structures, environmentalists. Uranus will force Taurus to be a part of the creature of comforts to question the consequences of our standard of living. Taurus will prefer to stick to the status quo, and Uranus is like, no, we have to change. Uranus and Taurus, we can expect to see Taurus topics shift drastically with relating to our finances, our environment, and sustainability. So, also femininity and womanhood has already undergone some rapid changes. Okay? And then we have capitalism and consumption all going on with that. So let's get on. Should I say some dates? It might be a little, I take a lot of notes, you guys. My Gemini Mars does a lot of notes. But we had some historical things happening in the late 70s. We had Uranus and Taurus, and in 1850s, we had Uranus and Taurus, 1930s. in the mid 30s to 40s, Uranus in Taurus. And now 2018, we have Uranus in Taurus. Okay, so let me talk about some dictators from the history. And then do you want to talk about the connection to that now or no?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so in the past with this energy, we had fascism, Nazism, and extreme communism. Many
Wow.
all with Uranus and Taurus, because
We have
Taurus.
that pushing up against us now.
Oh, you think so?
100%.
Okay, because
All three
Taurus
of
is
them.
all about dictators, right? So many dictators surfaced around
All
the
three of them.
world, especially in parts of Europe, South America, and Asia. We had the uprise of Mussolini and Hitler. Soviet Union, I don't know this person, Joseph Stalin. Have you ever?
Stalin.
Stalin had come to power. With this energy, we had the Great Purge, Nazi extremism. Hitler had an election in 1933. When the leader before died, he just made himself the leader. World War II began in 1939. We had some other leaders. Vargas, the dictator of Brazil, turned the country into a near fascist police state. Wow, I'm so glad I'm born in this time. 1935, Italy attacks Ethiopia, and Haile Selassie was a big person at that time. 1936, the Spanish Civil War began. 1936, it was the 4-year plan of the Nazis' economic program, which is all about money, and I just tied that in with the dictatorship. 1941, we also had attack on Pearl Harbor. Okay, so what are your thoughts just on dictatorship and current times now?
Well, I think that's the way everybody. That's where they're trying to take us with the dictatorship in terms of taking away our personal liberties. But it's a process. Um,
What?
well, I'm saying you didn't give me like a setup for that. I mean, I gotta. Dictatorship is the. I mean, I'm gonna
Well,
sound like I'm crazy because I'm just gonna say that's the ultimate thing. But there was no segue into it. But with the borders being released, um, the rising of interest rates, it's all a reset of the global financial system, and at the same time, it's gonna bring in maximum surveillance. Basically, China is the model. So I don't. I mean, the listeners are gonna be like, what the heck is this guy talking
no,
about?
we could talk about some finances. So, Uranus and Taurus, the impact of money. I have some stuff currently, but from the past, we had the Great Depression. That's very financial,
Well, that's
right?
what we're going to now. A lot of people think when you have over 300 trillion in global debt, and you have a giant Ponzi scheme, and you have most of the countries, their economies are debt based, which means you need more credit. Now, all the credit is tightening because everybody's rising interest rates. So, when you don't have credit in your debt based economy, what happens? Well, there's a collapse. Unless you do what? You print more money. But when you print more money, what happens? You have hyperinflation, which means you debase the currency. And every empire that has ever crashed, they started off with basically debasing the currency. So we're in that cycle, which leads us to a resetting of the currency or a great reset.
You know what this also makes me think of? I think it was during the Great Depression. I'm not sure. It was a documentary, and it was talking about how they set up everyone to turn in their gold, and we'll give you money for gold. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking
So
about.
they said everyone, they put it in newspapers, everyone turn in your gold, we'll give you money for gold. Everyone turned in their gold, and as soon as everyone, just about turning their gold, they lowered the value of cash. But the value of gold went up.
Yeah, they repriced the they had gold set at let's just call it $200 when they confiscated everybody's
So it
gold.
was lower.
Yeah, when they confiscated everybody's gold, they repriced it at whatever $300. But just a little tip for all the listeners: if you are planning on stacking gold and getting your money out of the monetary system, you have to go with coins because they consider coins a collector's item, so they wouldn't necessarily confiscate that. I mean, that's what they haven't done historically. But if you have it in a vault, if you have it in the bank, you're really wide open for confiscation.
So, before I explain the Great Depression, because I mean, I'm not a historian, so I like things to be told to me. Back to the dictatorship, I wanted to say who. I mean, I should have looked up the definition of dictatorship. Actually, let me define that. But while I'm looking up dictatorship, I would think that leaders is a big part right now. We had the guy who's in charge of Russia. The name is
Vladimir Putin.
Vladimir Putin. That's like a big, big thing. A lot of people, I think, would think he's a dictator. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. That's how they spin it in the West. We don't know. It could be information warfare. I know a lot of people in Russia like him. We're getting told that a lot of people in Russia don't like him, but I hear other things. So who knows? Yeah, but as far as from the West, you're gonna hear that Putin is definitely a dictator.
So a dictator is a ruler with total power over a country, typically one who has obtained control by force. So I don't see that. Do you? Well,
A ruler has total. Well, then, yeah.
who do you think has a total? Typically, one who obtained control by force. I don't see.
I would say Putin is because they came to power. I mean, listen, that world over there is totally different than the world we live in.
So you consider him a dictator?
On that definition,
And he is big in the news now. Like everything is about, a lot of stories are revolving Russia and Poland. And Poland too is.
You mean Ukraine?
Oh, Ukraine. Yeah, sorry. But Poland is a Taurus energy too.
Poland's over there, yes.
But their leader too. What do you think?
Poland, I'm going to give you an interesting fact on Poland. Since 2001, almost every country has had some kind of terrorist attack done on their homeland. Mm-hmm. Poland has not, but they have very strict border policies. They don't care. They don't care if you call them racist or whatnot. They give no F's about that, and they have had zero terrorists.
But they had people come from Ukraine, right? Refugees are coming from Ukraine.
Yes. And I don't know how that's working out, but they're on record saying we don't let people. They don't like it.
That's interesting.
They don't like it.
Okay, and then who else would I consider more dictatorship? I mean, I think, I mean,
Gavin Newsom.
No, seriously.
No, that guy Trudeau. He would love to do that.
Who's Trudeau?
The president or whatever they call prime minister, whatever their title is over there in Canada. He says.
Oh yeah, I was just thinking of Canada.
He said he admires the politician he admires the most is whatever Xi Jinping or whatever his name is from China. So
who is it?
That is the model, Mm-hmm. So the world they talk bad about China, but every government agency kind of is envious of the way they do it because they have total surveillance on their people. Anybody in politics wants power. It just is what it is throughout history.
And it's not just like it's fascism, Nazism, and communism. So it looks different in each country. So it's not just like what we would think as Hitler. This energy comes off looking different. It just seems like it's more about control. Anyway, so going back to the finances, the Great Depression in 1934, we saw the turning point in the Great Depression in America with unemployment decreasing to 22%. What do you think about unemployment? Because that's decreasing.
That's a high
unemployment.
That's a high number.
Yes.
So I would say it increased to 22.
Yes, increasing. Sorry, not decreasing. Oh, yeah. But what do you think about that?
In terms of what? Is
currently right now unemployment.
Well,
I don't know the numbers.
The Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, is basically waging a war on jobs. He wants unemployment to rise.
Why?
Because when you have unemployment, it kills demand. When you kill demand, you kill pricing. When you kill pricing, inflation comes down. High prices is a cure for high prices. If people have money, they can afford to spend more, which creates more inflation. So he has a war on jobs. So.
Yeah. Wait, is this good or bad? I'm confused. You're saying because I see the good part. Yeah,
it's a double-edged sword. So it's like, it's just like the stock market. They're happy when there's unemployment because that means he may not raise the interest rates higher. But at the same time, if you have high unemployment, you have less consumers, which revenue.
And do you
decreases.
think that we are hitting a Great Depression now? Like, do you think?
Yes, I do believe so. We're at a debt ceiling now. We have unsustainable amount of debt, and right now, I think it's June 30th is the cutoff date. The Republicans will raise the debt ceiling, I think 1.2 trillion or 1 something trillion, with caveats saying you can't do this, you can't do that. Democrats want an unlimited debt ceiling. They just want to be able to spend as much as they want and lift the debt ceiling up. So either way, but we're in a problem. So, you know, you and I, the people, you know, if we run out of money or we're in debt, we can't raise ceilings. It just is what it is. We got to cut spending. The American government has a printing press, so they could keep spending and print more. But who pays for that? That's taxation without representation. We're going to have to pay for that back in the form of inflation. Inflation is just an expansion of the money supply.
Did they have inflation in the Great Depression?
Well, that's when it first started. When we got
That was
off
when
we got off the gold standard.
Okay.
Well, we were still on the gold standard, but yes, inflation was high.
So we have some more stuff here. Hundreds of thousands of Americans lost their homes during the Great Depression. What do you think about that? And it was a lot of slum living. The rent was like $15.88. Franklin D. Roosevelt pledged to recover that. That was like a whole nother story if you're a historian, but the average monthly rent after they tried to fix everything to replace slum living was $23. So anyway, but what do you think about the connection with housing, because that's very Taurus energy, your resources and your stability.
Well, what's a big problem in America, especially in certain cities, is housing. Supposedly unhoused people. They have a lot of homeless problem.
And yes, there is so much homeless.
And we haven't seen anything yet after this border gets ran through.
It's his favorite word, border. But go ahead.
It'll be your worst favorite word in a minute. You know, you guys all want to, you know.
I don't mean to laugh. It's just that it's just
America's
like everything
sleep.
to him
they got
is
the
tight.
cover pulled over their heads. Everybody want to smoke and drink, have a good time, watch the Lakers.
Well, that's a Neptune and Pisces energy.
What I'm telling you right now, we're under attack. America is under attack.
Okay, so I definitely see the homelessness. There is a high number of homelessness. Do you think it's like compared to the Great Depression now? With the homelessness. Well, see, in LA, it's so much. It's so crazy. I've never seen anything like it. Do you see a connection there?
Do I see a connection? I mean, I'm sure.
Do you think it's as high?
I would just be on pure speculation.
I would have to research that. But that's interesting to know. But I didn't even think about homeless. But yes, slum living and homeless with the Great Depression. Next, last time we were in the 30s. In the mid-30s to the 40s, we also had an issue with farmland. And drought problems in the U.S. Midwest continued, and some 35 million acres of farmland were utterly destroyed. 225 million acres were in danger. There was this thing called the Farm Relief Act to help struggling farmers. The Joan Connolly Act made cattle a basic commodity, which gave the government authority over distribution and processing of the cattle. What do you think about that? I feel like that is so current to times now.
Farmland is under attack. Just ask the Dutch farmers. The Netherlands took over all their farms because they want to make a tri-state city. In England, I know they're trying to take back all the farms from the farmers. You know, they'll give them sweet deals, but the farmland is big. In America, they're putting a lot of regulations on the animals and things like that. So, yeah, farmland is under attack as well. They're trying to take out the farmers and own a lion's share of the land. You know, with that explosion in the train derailment, a lot of farmland was taken offline. You had so much Amish farmers.
Yeah, I was about to
say
the Amish.
So that creates,
that's their land and their home.
That creates food shortages.
Yes,
You've
which
got
again
food
is very
shortages
Taurus.
coupled with, you know, massive amount of people, unhoused people, unskilled labor people coming across the border. It's gonna be a problem. Not to mention all the stuff that's going on economically in terms of rising interest rates. We already had 3 banks fail this year, just getting the party started.
Right. And then also to United States versus Butler in 1936. That was a big court case because it was some type of act, Agricultural Adjustment Act in 1933, where they were trying to tax farmers, and it was against the United States. What is it called? What is our? I can't think of the Constitution. It was against our Constitution, so they actually won. But the government was trying to tax people, farmers, on them overgrowing certain crops, which is crazy. Anyway, that was really interesting. But farmland was a big deal during the last Uranus and Taurus, and I think currently it is a huge deal. We have, if you know, look at TikToks, there's so many stories of shortage of food, and they're saying it's coming. There is like this fear lingering. Even when you go to the stores, you can only buy one carton of egg. This is LA. I don't know how it is outside of California.
Well, they're cutting off our supply chains. You know, it's people way above my pay grade that know the algorithms that if you shut off certain systems here, certain systems there, certain percentage is going to squeeze, and it's either going to rise the price to where people can't afford it, and it's also going to make the food unavailable in certain areas at certain times. So, yeah. So you got 8 billion people, and when you start messing with the food supply, we already have starvation, but famines are going to come. I'm not saying it's going to be straight famine in the West, so to speak, in America, but prices will rise, and you won't be able to get everything that you want to get. So what does that squeeze out? That squeezes out the middle class. It squeezes out the lower class.
So in the 1850s, we had Uranus and Taurus as well. In the 1850s was all about slavery, and that was a big resource for farmland and, you know, a lot of slave owners. That was their resources, and it was starting to change. The tensions over the institution of slavery became more dramatic than ever, and it started towards the Civil War. July 4th in 1852, Frederick Douglass did a speech of the meaning of the July 4th of the Negro. 1854, Britain and France declare war on Russia. Again, Russia is Taurus, is coming up with Uranus and Taurus. It was called the Crimean War. Did I say that right?
Yes.
The Crimean War.
I'm not sure.
1855, we have violence over the practice of enslavement. Slavery was just huge. And what else do we have? Somebody was beat. Senator Charles Sumner of Massachusetts was beat because he was anti-slavery and gave a speech. Either he was for slavery or against slavery. The point is, and the Dred Scott decision was announced in the Supreme Court. All of this happened during Uranus and Taurus, and slavery was a huge resource and affected, I'm sure, everyone's income to some point, and was about farms and cropping and the body, to own somebody's body, because Taurus also represents the body. Now, before even the 1850s, we had 1973, and that was the British tea. Right? You want to
17. You keep saying.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that about the 18s?
Yeah. No, you said it in the earlier segment.
What did I say?
You said back in.
But what was
70s.
I talking about?
You were just going through a recap of this cycle.
Oh, okay. So, 1773, we had the Boston Tea Party. You want to talk about the Boston Tea Party?
It was just when America wanted to break free from British rule, and I believe they didn't want to pay tax, so they had the Boston Tea Party. I think they burned down some ships, things like that. I don't know, but I know that was the kickoff of basically saying, screw you, England. We're going to be our own independent country and not be restricted.
And then, too, that started off with Uranus and Gemini, which we'll talk about. But before we get into that, because Uranus and Gemini is all about borders, which Mercury, what's your name? Mercury Moses?
Mercury Morris.
I like Mercury Moses better, actually. That's a better name. Anyway, before I talk about Gemini,
do the proper paperwork, and maybe next week.
Gemini with borders, which we'll get into that. But now, back to Uranus and Taurus, which is the current energy that we are living under now. We also had women. Millions of women in North America went to work. And there's a lot of feminine energy with women. Also, feminists.
When was this?
This was in the 30s, I think, after the war. or before the war. But a lot of women started working. Men were away at war, so it's during the war. I actually
Right.
don't have the date, but that is feminist energy, and it's repeating currently right now. Don't you think it's a big war on like women and their bodies?
Do I think it's a war
Well,
on
also to
women?
well, not a war, but a whole big theme of it, and then also to abortions. That's a whole big thing, and this has been since 2018. And that whole voting of
Did I tell you
abortion.
you're too pretty to be a feminist?
Oh gosh, I don't know what that means, but okay. Anyway, so okay, so let's also talk about some other stuff. Currently with cryptocurrency is very Uranus and Taurus. What are your thoughts on cryptocurrency?
Cryptocurrency. I like what it tries to represent. It's basically what's the word I look for? Not electric gold, but it's internet gold or something. It has the same thing where you're getting yourself out of the monetary system, the standard system, um, and you are not subject to the Federal Reserves of the central banks, so it can't be tweaked. But at the same time, you see how it collapses. It could be a Ponzi. I listen.
Yeah,
I don't know, but it's fundamental. The attraction to it,
was liberation, like freedom.
liberation, and I agree with it 100%. Now, can it functionally be like gold? Because gold has been, tried and true for 5,000 years. Um, I'm not sure because you need an internet to run it, and you're on their internet. So I don't know,
Right.
but they have comebacks for it. I don't know.
Because Taurus is all about money, and then you can expect the unexpected, and it's all about freedom and radical change. With cryptocurrency, it's got Uranus and Taurus written all over it. Even NFTs, because Taurus is the ruler of Taurus is Venus, and Venus is all about
Now
beauty.
NFTs is garbage.
Well, but it was about art, right? Art and
Now,
money at the same
that
time.
was a scam, and that went out as fast as it came in.
Okay, and then to talk about Uranus and Taurus currently with food, what do you think about the process of fake meat and eating bugs? And we discussed the cattle on a farm, but I feel like that is the current Uranus and Taurus. This whole like, what is the meat called? The fake meat?
Impossible.
Yeah, the impossible meat, and celebrities really pushing vegan and
The celebrities are quote unquote they're AKA slaves. They're just used. They're useful idiots for the globalists. They just use these guys to get their narrative out and make all the other idiots go with it. As far as eating bugs and all that, that's just they're trying to push that as like, oh, it's climate change. There's not enough food. We got to do this and that. This is all control mechanisms. So, and those things are unhealthy for us. We know what's healthy for us. Meat and animals are healthy for us. We know that. Um, it's been tried, true,
well, and
proven.
meat is also a resource. So that's just interesting. Here's your favorite. Uranus means border. So here is his favorite. I feel like his favorite word. And what do you have to say about our current situation with borders?
I don't. It's not my favorite. Number one, we are in a emergency situation. I'm not very good with my vocabulary today. My emergency situation in terms of our southern border is being attacked. I believe our government is in on it. Um, and the Title 42 is going to be lifted.
What's Title 42?
It was basically put in by the Trump administration during, or executed, I'm not quite sure, but during COVID, where you had to get sent back to the country you came, like back to Mexico, your last country. Like, you couldn't stay here. But they're lifting that. Now you have hundreds of thousands of people on the border ready to come in, and when they come in, they're going to seek asylum. So it's a weaponization of mass migration. But these people that are coming in, they're not going to get the proper checking. So you're going to get a uprising of malaria, tuberculosis. Pandemics will be back in America. Again, I think it's all by design. But when you talk about borders, that border's crashing. But it's also, if you go with the whole theme of one world government, that means borders crash a little bit. So, or you could take it to the sense of there will be more lockdowns. And those lockdowns, I mean, are basically invisible borders.
Right, right. Oh, definitely. Okay, so now this gets me more into borders. Uranus and Gemini. So that's what's coming up next. It's going to start in 2025. There's some retrogrades, hence why you see Uranus and Taurus in 2026 ending. There's always retrogrades. But around 2025 is when Uranus and Gemini starts all the way to 2032. Even going into 2033 with a retrograde. So, also too, there's different aspects. I won't complicate it. Things it gets more detailed. We'll do some further podcasts on that. So, but let me tell you what basically Uranus and Gemini means. Gemini already is the energy of Gemini is associated with air, communication, curiosity, and networks. So we'll have some big changes when it comes to technology, social media, and transportation. Gemini is the sign ruling travel and tourism. It's a very fast sign. So when you have it connected to Uranus, innovation is huge, right? It amplifies the sign, and there's going to be major breakthroughs and discoveries. Gemini's keywords, I would say, is advertising, books, communication, neighborhoods, driving, intelligence, mail, messages, phones, press, school, travel, and writers. And Uranus in Gemini is innovating through communication and curiosity and media. And it's going to be affecting our local travel and public transportation and regional tourism and business trips. In the past, when we had Uranus in Gemini, there were a lot of borders set up. Now, remember, this is a 7-year cycle, and so we saw borders changing in Europe as the war ended in 1945, and a new world order began. In 1945, Germany was divided into 4 zones. 1946, Austria was divided into 4 zones. Neighborhoods were ruled by all 3 in 1945 and 1946. Europe began to split into new neighborhood countries. We also had the automobile production in the United States for private consumers. It was halted. Gasoline was rationalized. Did I say that right? Rationalized? Ration. Wait, how do you say that? Rationed.
Yeah.
It was rationed. In 1945, we had the end of the World War II in Europe. We had an atomic bomb dropped. In 1945. 1946, Winston Churchill did a whole speech called the Iron Curtain, which was all about dividing Europe. Mercury Moses loves to talk about borders, and it's clear from our past that it's all about borders that are more close to us. I think you're talking about more borders with the country. It seems like the borders are going to tighten up. Even smaller. In 1948, the Berlin blockade happened, and what else do we have? Railroads and canal access was blocked during this time, and majority of parts in Europe and many in Asia was destroyed and damaged by bridges, and trains were gone, and bridges were banished. So, what are your thoughts on local boards, like within the city and your neighborhood? Because that's what Gemini represents. It represents, this is coming up in the future. What do you think it's going to look like in the future with our borders?
Well, ideally, what they want to do is create like smaller cities where we don't move around as much. They're already trying to pilot that in like Oxford, England. They're called 15-minute cities. They want to keep us all, where we can't move around freely as we want to. Again, we're going back to that dictatorship. Again, we're going back to, it's all a control mechanism. Everything's a control mechanism, whether it be financial, whether it be the climate, whether it be, in a roundabout way, the borders being open. It's,
Well,
our replacements are coming in.
This is also, Gemini energy is also focusing on transportation. So I remember we were discussing the props, and they were making, it was a prop voting on, I think, right, in 2025. When is it going to happen? In 2030? Do you remember?
What?
The prop about electric cars. Do you remember? Well, I think it was two props that they were going to put more money into electric cars, and the person who was presenting the props, because we were doing this prop educational social, what do you call it, party. I don't want to call it a party, but anyway, and the person who had that prop was basically explaining what you're saying, like the 5 minute, is it 15-minute cities?
15 minutes.
And they're saying like they want us to put all this money into electric cars so they can limit the amount of transportation we have. Right. Which I would see that happening with the Uranus and Gemini, because it's about transportation. And like Elon Musk is like blowing up more than ever. I think all that would be so much bigger currently. Just the electric cars, transportation, limiting borders, because that's what we had in the past. Now we also have coming up with Uranus and Gemini communication. So this is when television was really big, like Meet the Press, a weekly American televised show, broadcast for the first time on NBC. What else? We also had 1947, the first broadcast of the show, which I said 1947 World Series was broadcasted for the first time. So television was really big. TV was big. Media was big. How do you think social media, if you could think, like, how do you think it would be? Do you think it would be more limited? More rules in the future coming up when we're talking about this Gemini, Uranus and Gemini, which is from 2025 to 2032. You guys, he's not really listening. He's on his phone. No, that's why I'm repeating everything I'm saying.
I don't know if you wanted me to predict, but to what end. So obviously they want to go with more censorship, but we are creating, I guess, parallel universes where there's less censorship. But at the end of the day, you're still using these people's internet. And when I say these people, I'm talking about the elites.
So I wonder if something's going to be created under, like, behind the shadows of the internet.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But then, I hate to be Dr. Doom, but then they'll ban it or make it illegal.
Right.
So that's all I'm saying.
I just wonder if that's going to happen. We had cell phone really starting in 1947. The engineers started to make those towers go around. U.S. mail was delivered twice a day until 1950. So also books were really big with Gemini, Uranus, and Gemini. We had some big books. The Catcher in the Rye was published. Look at this, 1984. Was published. That is huge because that's talking about the government and Big Brother. Right. And that was written during Uranus and also Animal Farm was written in 1945. All that is under
the same guy?
Yes, all that was under, which is talking about the government and the system, and all that was under Uranus and Gemini. So this will be interesting to see what's going to be published, what kind of writings will happen in the future for us. Schools was another big deal. Education was a huge deal, and it's going to be a huge deal coming up. I wonder if homeschooling will be bigger than ever, self-taught, because in the 30s and the 40s, teachers were not, they were all in the military. So you had a really bad school system. And I would think that public system is already getting bad now. So imagine... What, are you going to say something, or are you just in thought?
Well, again, the schools are just a control mechanism. Your kids are being taught what they want you to, what they want them to learn. So, they've got drag shows now going to schools. There's an agenda being pushed at these schools. There's an indoctrination being pushed at the schools, and it's accelerated. Anybody that wants to say I'm a conspiracy theorist or fight me on that. All this stuff has been accelerated here in the last, decade, but definitely in the last 3 or 4 years. Things have changed the way reimagining history, this and that. So, definitely the schooling system for a lot of people will have to be homeschooled or whatnot. I know, the indoctrination, why I think it is, some people think it's more of a woke or it's a better history or a better things. But
he's on his phone the whole time. That's why the phone just rang. But go ahead. Sorry to cut you.
Nobody cared. They were listening to what I was saying.
Go ahead.
So yeah, the education system is under attack in my ways. Listen, I have my theories, and
I think the education is system is definitely going to change because we already had that throughout history. Communication is going to change, teaching and learning, and even the way we get our news. I already see it already rumbling to change, but by 2025, the way we get our news is going to change. Public transportation, traveling to state, commuting, all that because the North Node when the North Node hit Gemini during 2021, that is when we had travel become a big part with airports. So all that is going you're going to expect that coming up with the future of Gemini. So I want to thank Mr. Mercury Moses for being a part of this because he knows a lot about the current situation. I'm too busy studying astrology and all that stuff to really, really pay attention. But it was good to know. Is there anything else you want to add?
It was my pleasure. That's all I want to add.
Okay, so I'm gonna pull some tarot cards because I don't want to leave us hanging. I feel like sometimes it's like doom and gloom when you learn history and how it can repeat. I have a Sankofa.
One thing we learn from history, we don't learn from history.
Okay, well, and I have a Sankofa symbol tattooed on me, and the Sankofa symbol is about know your history so you won't repeat your past. So yes, that's what we get, and that's very important to me, and to have that connected to astrology is amazing. So let me pull some tarot cards. I'm using my African tarot. If you hear me shuffling, that's what I'm doing now. So let's pull some cards on what we can do for guidance when it comes to this future energy and current energy. So first we have the Seven of Pentacles, and the Seven of Pentacles is about reaping what you sow. So really work on saving your resources and learning where to put your resources and learning where to put what you put your energy and work on, because whatever you work on, whatever you focus on is going to grow. This is upright, so this is positive energy. Just know whatever you work on is going to grow. Next we have the Queen of Swords, and the Queen of Swords is about using her intelligence, and she's all about reading and building knowledge. So listen to podcasts, listen to your news, collect the information that you need to. You want to be intelligent, and you want to use all the energy you can to be intelligent. And if that involves reading books, if that involves researching on the internet, do it all, because the Queen of Swords is not only going to research, but they're going to teach the knowledge and be very, very clear in their communication. They're not gossipers. They're not going off just they're not going to believe things without doing the research, basically. So do all that with the Queen of Swords. And then lastly, we have the Nine of Wands. Set some boundaries and persevere. Stay strong. The Nine of Wands, the guy is bandaged up, but he's still standing up with his staff in his hand. So he is going to endure all and stay strong, even if he's wounded. So persevere no matter what you have. So you reap what you sow. Watch where you're putting your resources, and whatever you put your energy and resources is going to grow. Stay intelligent. Use your words wisely. Read and collect information and data, and because you are the Queen of Swords. And lastly, persevere. And that's what we have for the tarot. If you are listening to this and you enjoyed everything, please give me some feedback. I'm down for positive feedback, and because this is only my second podcast, and if you have any questions, please hit me up on Instagram. It is called, my Instagram is It's Danyell Carmelita, ITSDANYELL CARMELITA. And yes, I hope you enjoyed the Uranus and Taurus and what it's going to look like historically, what it looked like historically, and how we are currently feeling it, and what we have to look forward to with Uranus and Gemini in 2025. I encourage everyone to continue and start exploring tarot and astrology as tools of understanding what is currently happening in the sky and how it's connecting us. Thank you for tuning in, and please subscribe to this podcast and share it with your friends and with others. And also, I just want you lastly to know that I do one-on-one readings. So go ahead and look at my Instagram for my website. The link is in a bio. And I do tarot readings and astrology readings, okay? And I hope you enjoyed, because I enjoyed. I learned a lot from this, and I hope you learned a lot. So I will see you guys next week on, I was about to say something else because it's still so new to me, on Astro Tarot Insights. Thank you guys for listening. Bye.